and refugees and asylum seekers, and mostly coming from the states or the countries of Somalia, South Sudan. We even have others coming all the way from the DRC, and that is what we will be looking at, and especially now that aid is slowly but surely dwindling. Allow me to rope in my panel of experts. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Stella Suge, who is the Executive Director for Film Aid Kenya. Karibu Stella.
Asante sana.
And just next to Stella, we have John, Commissioner for Refugee Affairs in Kenya. Karibu sana, Bwana Mburugo.
Thank you, Mr. Njue.
Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes.
Maybe to kick off this live discussion, where are we in refugees and in Kenya, and what are the numbers? What are the current numbers that we have?
We continue as a country to host refugees. Currently, we have 853,074 registered refugees and asylum seekers. This is a number that has been growing over time. 2 years ago, in March 2023, we had about 530,000. It means that we have had a continuous influx of refugees from the East Africa, Horn of Africa, Great Lakes region. And lately we have some Afghanistans who have also come to the country.
We have
Afghanistan, yes, and we will discuss more in relation to why they have come all the way, whether they are regard, and be able to treat them.
And very quickly, what is the difference between asylum seekers?
A refugee who has expressed of persecution from genocide, whether from religious point, from a political conflict, and lately obviously from the climate push, and has sought refuge in at least the neighboring country. And what we have in Kenya is a population of refugees who have been generated by the protracted situation of conflict in the region. And you see what is happening in DR Congo, what is happening in what has happened in Somalia, and those are the push bring the refugees to the country. We also see of the climate change, extreme drought, loss of livelihood to our herders, refuge to try and recollect their lives from what losses has been there. These are obligated under the UN Convention of 1951 to welcome, host, and secure refugees, mainly coming from conflict situations. And that is what started in Kenya in early independence time. And this was compounded in 1990s when Somalia regime of the late Said Barre then seen refugees from the Horn region. And they come in terms of women, children, persons, persons with disability. Mostly we are hosting 5,000 in Dadaab, 5,000 of, and about 306,000 in Kakuma. In urban areas, for those who are self-reliant, they are in urban areas, maybe they had a trade or a profession, a doctor, a teacher. Some have been able to find how they are able to survive in terms of livelihoods. We have a doctor in Kayore who runs his own clinic. So those ones, we have 1,000 who are in urban areas, 60% being in Nairobi. And then we have Nakuru, Mombasa, Eldoret, and Kiambu, Isinya, Ruiru, and the others that we find in this area. So that is the refugee situation.
Okay, and you'll be telling us what exactly the government is doing to plug the big gap that has been left by Madam Stella at film to the refugees.
Good morning, and many, but also to talk about World Refugee refugees, I think it's a very important to shine a light on the people that have been forcibly also being, because important player in the region. The commissioner has talked about a lot of displacement from Somalia. Kenya is that country that is number of people. So thank you for making time to talk about World Refugee Day, and the commission sits alongside you to talk about this, because it was and the work that the government of Kenya is. So personally, I am the executive director of FilmAid Kenya. Mainly our role is and local communities, refugee camps, that obviously have for information. When you cross the border, you come from Somalia, you get into Dadaab and find that there are 45 actors, then you need somebody to tell you really what is going on, where to access the many different services from health, education, what you call protection, what is the government doing. You need somebody that directs you, gives information to understand the ecosystem and how to operate within that context. If you look at currently, the influx into Kakuma, there's a lot of, so just to envision or to visualize how a reception center is that you find 500 people who have come from different places, and they don't know, for example, how to eventually get a house, or how to eventually get any other kind of service. If I'm sick, where do I actually get that service? So it's to ensure that the population that is in this type of need understand where to get what, where, and when, and what are your rights, and also what are your responsibilities, because obviously you cannot, as a person, be without responsibility. So it's really to clarify, to create an environment where all those people that have been displaced have an understanding. And one of the critical roles that FilmAid is playing is also ensuring that the population outside of the refugees, say for example the local communities in Garissa County, in Turkana County, or even in Nairobi, or engagement with persons like yourselves in the media, the wider Kenyan community, actually have greater awareness about the presence of refugees, and to have a greater understanding about the presence of refugees, because of course not everybody knows why people have left their country, come all the way from DRC to come to Kenya, left Somalia or left South Sudan, and they're as far as the Commission has pointed out, all the way from Afghanistan. So if we are hosting people, it's very important that as the hosts we know why these people are here. And I think for us, it's very important that we create an environment of understanding and empathy, because part of the challenges of displacement is in fact the trauma that people experience while they leave their homes. You know, one of the famous stories of refugee displacement is in fact in the beginning of Kakuma, when we had the nearly 1,000 young then Sudanese boys who left Sudan to go into Ethiopia and to come into Kenya, which is a very traumatic experience. So to really create that awareness, understanding, is something critical for us to then create an environment of empathy, and for us as Kenyans to also understand what is it that I can do at an individual level, for you as Njue, for myself as Stella, or for the Commissioner. What is it that we can all do to create a better environment for literally our brothers and sisters who are coming from across the countries.
And beyond, you've noted that you do provide information, and beyond information and psychosocial support, how does FilmAid empower these refugees economically?
So we, I would say proudly, in the information age, provide skills development across communication, mainly in film, but also digital media and the use of the arts, which is also a very important communication tool within Africa. We know that in Africa, you know, we do a lot of music, visual art, performance art. So we ensure that those skills are nurtured and developed to fruition, and also then support the communities to be in the lead in communication about the issues that affect them. At the end of the day, I can never really speak about the plight of refugees as a refugee, because I don't have that experience. I haven't left my country. I don't live in a small space or lacking funding, so I don't have the same experience. So we make sure that refugees become their own advocates. They talk about their own issues and the issues affecting their communities. And more broadly across the globe, we are seeing refugees, therefore, who are empowered, who've received communication skills, being the ones that are advocating for other refugees who don't have either the skills or the platforms. So FilmAid, during such events, we are honored to be able to engage in this particular manner. But also we have the annual film festival, which is a platform that refugees then present their creative works, but also is a platform where they talk about the issues that affect them.
Commissioner, back to you. I think USAID is one of the biggest aid organization in the world, and specifically when it comes to refugees in the country. How much are we talking about? How much has been taken away from the refugees by USAID and other organizations, if there are other organizations who have pulled out of assisting them?
I would first maybe is to say that as a Department for Government in Management and Administration of Refugees, we work with the partners, UNHCR, FilmAid, World Food Programme, UNICEF, USAID, and all others that are within the space, IRC and many others. I would say that the government has been working with the partners in the humanitarian support. But understandably, Mr. Njue, the world has or did recognize that there is unsustainability in humanitarian approach way back in 2016. And I think from there, we have had progressive interventions and strategies to see how best the refugees would be hosted by the hosting countries. Kenya has participated in the Global on Compact for Refugees. We developed our own share, what is we call the sustainable share for refugee and the host community as an socio-economic intervention. We have now developed what we call Shirika Plan as a socio-economic inclusion and integration of refugees into the national government service delivery system.
Yes, I noted while I was doing this research, I noted the Shirika Plan, and you're going to be telling us how exactly it's moving in to help those people.
Going back to the humanitarian support and the loss. World Food Programme is the one that takes the bigger chunk of the humanitarian support in relation to the monthly tokens and minimum basket that they are given. If I paint a picture, in 2023 we were at 60% minimum basket, meaning that the basket would have milk, beans, rice, and the nutrients that are necessary per household. In 2024, we came to 45%, meaning that the basket shrunk. And at this time, we are 30%, meaning further shrinking of the minimum basket. What does that mean? It means that, and over and above that, since June this year, we used to have 850 shillings, Baba Chakula, that they would be disbursed to the refugees through Safaricom. That has been stopped. If I take that first, 850 shillings to 200,000 refugees in the camp of Kakuma is 170 million injection per month, meaning that they are able to get that extra, which the basket is not providing. And that means that the family would somehow be able to eke a living for the month. What was that supporting? It was supporting what we call the credit system economy, where there is a distributor, there is a wholesaler, there is a retailer, there is a shopkeeper, and then there is a refugee. All that chain has been broken by stopping 850 shillings disbursement in humanitarian support. Looking at the basket itself, it means that the shrinking to 20% that is expected in August will imply that the mothers who are breastfeeding, the school-going children, cannot sustainably again continue going to school. The breastfeeding children, we expect malnutrition to spike up. What about the overall household reactions? Of course, there is depression. They have no other alternative source of livelihoods. There is a lot of domestic violence. People are having hopelessness and depression. They cannot be able to see what next for their lives. We are having thefts. They think that the other household has some extra unga, extra flour and oil or something. And therefore, a lot of thefts are there. Common fights from a lot of, a lot of tension, a lot of displacement in terms of the expectations that I am going to get something. Over and above that, even when we introduce the aspect of intervention for what we are going to talk about, Shirika Plan, it is not an immediate solution. The immediate solution is the food. And that is a challenge that we have seen a lot of protests coming up, a challenge of what we have just spoken about, the spike in criminality, because people have to survive. But they're in a camp situation. And we have, together with the partners, we have to get a solution. The stoppage, which was quite abrupt, by the American administration in support of World Food Program, which was doing 80% of the support to World Food Program, has really affected that. That includes even the other sustainability interventions, small irrigation schemes, agriculture interventions, maybe how they could keep 1 or 2 livestock in terms of goats that they could milk. All this has gone down. And that means that we have a serious humanitarian challenge. 3 months. By September, we'll have a lot of chaos in these camps. Lastly, the aspect of USAID. USAID used to support us in running Level 4 hospital in Kakuma, meaning that they were supporting the medical, non-pharmaceutical, as well as the medical personnel. And that, with the stoppage, is under challenge.
So
we
whatever
do
you
not know who is coming to step in.
Yeah.
Not the county government, not the national government. Because of the abruptness, of course, budgets had been done. And right now, county government cannot employ new medical personnel. Neither can it take up the ones who are there. So for now, the ones who are serving, they are serving like humanitarian, because you said already gave them a notice and they are just there. Other partners are trying to step in. And by the way, 60%, 60 staff have been laid off by International Refugee Council, who are the implementing partner for UNHCR in the health sector. That means that International Refugee Council can no longer sustainably support the medical personnel. That presents the challenge of medical access to the refugee as well as the hosts. And that is the scenario we have in the country. So, it is quite dire. And we need to be able to get an intervention immediately. So,
Commissioner, what you're telling us is that the situation is not just by USAID alone. From the figures that you have, 60% to 45% to 30%, it has been gradual, just not USAID that has just pulled out. A number of also humanitarian organizations have pulled out as well.
World Food Program presents the frontline humanitarian support. It gets support from other partners. The American government has been giving 80% of that humanitarian support in terms of cereals and all others that composed the basket, minimum basket. However, that has stopped. World Food Program is running up and down to see how best can we be able to talk to other partners. But there is no partner who is not challenged. Yeah? The inward-looking policy of the current administration in America has really affected the humanitarian space. And that landscape has even gone to Europe, where the countries in Europe are also holding back. So it now behoves the hosting country, Kenya, and the few partners that may step forward to be able to bridge the gap. It is not going to be easy. We are under a very serious rough patch moving forward, because we are hosting over 800,000, as I mentioned, and they must be sustained in terms of food. Just as you require food yourself, I also are in a situation where I have to see what partners are we speaking to, We have socialized the government, we have sensitized the government in terms of the leadership, executive leadership of the country, that it is important that we look now straight in the eye the aspect of the humanitarian crisis that may present itself, including the aspects of criminality.
Yes, yes.
In the aspect moving forward because of this stoppage.
Yes, and we will be looking at what exactly you are doing in matter security and also bridging that gap. But looking at Film Aid, you're known for your media entrepreneur training skills, and you've just alluded to that. How can you elaborate on this? Can you elaborate on this when it comes to how these types of skill sets are helping refugees turn around their fortune, and especially in the light of dwindling humanitarian aid?
So thank you very much. Just allow me to link it as well to what the Commissioner has talked about. The reduction in funding, mainly from US government, has broader impact because it means we are reprogramming, reprioritizing, and one of the I would say the strides forward that we were making was actually around ensuring that communities were starting to become self-sustaining. That means the many of us actors were providing training, and whether it's startups to ensure that those who are able to do business, or for example those who are part of the food distribution value chain, were becoming self-sustaining and therefore moving out of the cycle of vulnerability and reliance and dependence on the aid. So those are nearly the first casualties that in the face of reduction in healthcare, education, protection and food security, it means we are redirecting most of the resources back to the most essential services, and therefore we are reducing on taking the communities really away from the dependency. And that is a major, I would say it's a major loss from the direction that we're going, because obviously long term of ensuring that communities were out of the dependency would have meant long term there would have been less need for as much funding as we currently have. So just to put into perspective, if you look at a student that has graduated from Film Aid, it means that an individual would get a basket from, not a basket, a startup kit, which means that Film Aid would have given a camera and a computer for that individual to start their own business. But it means now that funding is being redirected. So previously that individual within 1 year would have been providing for their family nearly independently of the food assistance and all that. And one of the things also that you would see, if that individual is taking their child to school, they don't have to particularly take them to the school within Kakuma. They could have gone to better schools in other parts of Kenya, and therefore in the long term would have seen a better education, of course from the schools that are in other parts of the country, and preparing those individuals for long-term durable solutions, whether when they go back to Somalia, South Sudan and other countries, or when they access durable solutions and go to Europe or go to the US, they would have been more prepared because of better education. And long term, if you talk about somebody being able to run their own business, it's not only the refugees that would benefit, but also the Kenyan communities. If you look at again what the Commissioner talked about, 800 shillings per person per month, it really injects reasonable income into the economy, for which the Kenyan communities are the beneficiaries, because they're the ones who are driving the value chain of the food, from this part of the country all the way to Dadaab and Kakuma refugee camps. So I think the loss of this direction of ensuring the independence of the communities is actually something that has been lost. And from our perspective as well, for all of us, our individual ability to provide for our families is part and parcel of who we are as human beings, and is very much linked to what we define as our own dignity. That I can take care of my children. If they are sick and there is no space at the hospital in the camp, I can take them to Lodwar, I can take them to Garissa, and that now is reduced because, generally then dependence is the vulnerability, is the taking away of dignity. So for Film Aid, we have been providing training, and most of those individuals over the last about 15 years have already gone on to create their own independent media houses and are running their own businesses. And you know, of course, in communication age, all of us are able to take care of our brands. We need, you know, video production, photography, advertising, and of course amplifying the messages of what we are doing, our programs, and that has been what then our students are able to do. So we currently have about 20 media houses that are born out of FilmAid's media training program, and most of them are, of course, when they go back to their countries of origin, either South Sudan, Somalia, DRC, and other countries, actually are starting up their own businesses as own media houses. So we know quite a number of individuals who've left Dadaab and Kakuma to Somalia and South Sudan who are running media houses, including running a film festival in Juba, which we have to be proud of. You know, we are,
yes,
and I think, you know, media is something very important, also because it's a way that we document our culture. Because if I tell my story, then I'm able today to document my background as an individual from the Lotuko community, which long term, you know, 20 years from today, is something that will be very important in terms of understanding who that community is. Because of course the world is changing, people are moving, and that culture can easily be left or forgotten. If you look at something important as part of our identity as culture, some of the stories are, our role is to provide the communication skills, but most of the stories are told in the local languages. And that also is something that's very important in documenting. And that's what people take pride in, as they identify who they are, and they are able to keep that. Or if you talk about music, if you talk about theater, if you talk about poetry, that's an identity of a people that has been displaced, and they are able to you know, have a glimpse of their own culture. Last year we did a story of the Burundian drums, which even I was learning that on the spot on production, that the drums can communicate so many things. The Burundian drum, it can be the sound of a celebration. It can also be the sound of war. It can also be the sound of mourning, or any part of what the society represents. You learn so many things through arts and and of course through media, and it is something now that we are able to document and archive, and that long term will be something valuable. And I think for the countries of origin where the social fabric has been destroyed, like Somalia and South Sudan, it's very important that these individuals go back and rebuild the media in those countries and have the skills. Also to communicate, obviously, is part and parcel of today's society.
You're right. Picking from where Stella has left, we are looking at a reduction of 30%. And I was watching one of the international organizations in regards, international media house, in regards to what they are reporting. And they indicate that reduced food rations are causing a lot of friction. Yes. I think you've noted, rightly noted that. How are you bridging the funding gap? And what does it mean for a child in Kakuma and Dadaab who was used at least two or three meals per day? And what is the urgent mitigation strategy that your State Department is looking at?
Of course, the management of refugee affairs is a collective responsibility. The refugee is an international citizen, where the host community is obligated, the host country is obligated as a signatory and party to the UN Convention, and the international community to support. And as a government, we are doing what we are supposed to do. We welcome, we provide security, as well as document and give access to the services that we are able to support in terms of education, in terms of health, access to water. Beyond that, in terms of humanitarian support, the food support, that is the responsibility of the international community. And it is a joint effort. When now we get to a crisis as we are now looking forward to in the next few months, although we are already in that crisis mode, the government has to reassess how best to get into, to manage together with the World Food Program, UNHCR. And that means that we have to provide for a budget. It calls for a budgetary intervention because what has been cut, the stoppage is resources in terms of the cereals that were coming. The monthly disbursement, the Baba Chakula, that has stopped. Even if Baba Chakula does not get reinstated, but there has to be support in terms of the food for sustaining the families in the camps. Previously, the government was supporting through emergency provision. And that, I think, is a way that government has to look at, because we cannot now keep the refugees without food in the camps, and then we are not even providing. The international community has engaged with us, and they have painted the dire situation that they are in. And this is even further compounded by the fact that the durable solution on resettlement to third country has also closed. That aperture where 2,000, 5,000 were going to America is closed. And so is in Canada, Germany. By the way, a month and a half ago, we returned to Kakuma from Nairobi, having processed them, done medical and everything else, ready to depart for Germany. 183 back to Kakuma. So you see the traumatic...
What happened? What happened exactly?
It happened that there's a new administration in
Germany.
In Germany.
Yeah.
And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where the refugee domicile responsibility is, said that having assessed their policies, they are no longer accepting refugee migrants. And you know that that administration won the elections on protect our borders.
Yes.
And many countries in the global north are moving that way, closing their borders, inward-looking policies that are not accommodative to the refugees. So for us as Africa, there is the African Union Protocol of 1969. I think we have never reactivated, it has never been activated for the continental approach in a humanitarian attention. IGAD has tried on a common policy for management of refugees, but as a country, now we feel very constrained, and in fact we feel abandoned, I would say that, because it is a joint effort. The principle of shared burden has been abdicated by the partners, and therefore the country has to reassess how, even as we continue hosting the 853,000 refugees, how are we going to manage? What is the long-term sustainability of this international obligation? Are we going to reassess it? What are we, how much can we take versus the national obligation of national interest?
And Commissioner, I'm not complaining, but why is it that this burden has been left to Kenya? I mean, I've grown up here in Kakuma and Dadaab refugee camps, and now we are talking about from 300, 500,000, now we are 850, we are heading to almost 1 million.
Yes.
Why is this responsibility a Kenyan affair only?
Kenya is in the mix because you are signatory, you are part. It is a responsibility that we took ourselves.
How many do we have in Tanzania?
It is not,
Uganda?
it is every country that hosts refugees carries that burden, or carries that opportunity that you are hosting refugees. So it is how now the internal policies of the country, it is the one that now dictates what numbers you take. Because you can take, like I came from Netherlands, and they have again stopped. They were taken from Syria, from Ukraine. They have stopped. I've just said that Germany has stopped on it. So we can also say we are stopping as a country, and we now manage the numbers that we have. Because if we don't stop now, if we don't rethink, if we don't come up with a strategy of intervention and long-term sustainability and management of refugees, will be 1 million before the end of this year. So what? And if we also look at the figures, statistically speaking, 2023 we were 530. Now we are 853. In 10 years, that is in a 300,000 increase or spike of refugee influx in the country for 2 years. So if you do that 10 years, we'll have 3 million refugees. Is the country ready for that in terms of sustainability, in terms of resources, in terms of the pressure on security, in terms of RAD pressure, in terms of the tension with the host community? So those are issues that must be on the table when government is assessing what to do with the refugees long term.
As we are assessing, are we still picking more refugees right now, or we have already stopped, just like other countries have done?
We have not stopped because Kenya practices open door policy. So until that point that the government decides that we want to reassess, because informed by the stoppage of humanitarian assistance, the government now assesses its capacity to bridge the gap. If it cannot, if it was maybe $1 billion shillings, and the government wants to step in with $1 billion shillings to support in terms of food rations and all that, as part of the international obligation, so be it. If it feels that that cannot be directed in terms of humanitarian, and we are now caught against the wall. Why? We have these people here. So somehow the government has to look at an intervention that is sustainable in the immediate term. Because in the long term, we can reassess and say, we do verification. We emphasize on voluntary repatriation. But again, voluntary repatriation has a caveat. I have to volunteer. I have to step forward that I want to go back to Burundi. I want to go back to DRC. And again, there's also the international principle of non-refoulement. You cannot forcefully take a refugee back. You saw the debacle that was there.
I remember when you were talking about
Turkish. Yeah. Let's not go there. But basically, we are not supposed to push them out of our country. It is to look at how sustainably we can be able to do that. And by doing so, the government has to sit down with the international community and it is a time to bite the bullet.
And you'll be telling us all about the Shirika plan. But Stella, I'm looking at policy changes or reforms, just like Commissioner is talking about. Which socio-economic ones would you feel that could have an impact on refugees, and what role does FilmAid now here play in advocating for these changes? Because there have to be some changes, just like Commissioner has talked about. So
in my view, I think we are on the right path, even though it looks a little bit bleak, obviously, with the loss of US government support. And it's not in its entirety. It's partial loss, right? But you know, since 2016, first of all, the government of Kenya shifted from what we call encampment policy to settlement, and that's why we have the Kalobey integrated settlement. And in 2021, President Uhuru signed into law the Refugee Act of 2021. And at the beginning of last year, February 24, we had the regulations to regularize and enable the implementation of the Refugee Act. And I think these are really great strides, and you know, with government and the leadership of the Commissioner, we are really taking great strides into implementing the change, therefore, through the Shirika plan. And of course, it's a balancing act, because then you're talking about the resources that we need to invest in order to have the fruits of the Refugee Act, which are now going down. So I think it's a continued discussion and collaboration with our partners, who also remain steadfast irrespective of the challenges. You know, our donors continue to stand with us and to ensure that we are continuing to operate. We are collaborating in prioritizing what is there to sustain the most essential services. And I think the role of government is elevating, because you know, for the person again to become independent, it means what is contained in the 2021 Act is very important, which is, for example, ensuring that people can actually work, ensuring that the refugees can access business permits, and some of them are extremely savvy in doing businesses. And I think we know that as general knowledge, the Somali people are very savvy. The Ethiopian communities are very savvy, so giving them an enabling environment to work and to do business is some of the key changes that, you know, government actually is already working to enable in order to, again, to reduce the number of people that are fully dependent. So I think some of the things that are contained within the 2021 Refugee Act are very, very critical, which is then opening up that space for business across, at least even if it's within the two counties of Garissa and Turkana, that people can work and be independent. And if you look at, for example, education, you would be very surprised that there are many refugees that have done so well. It's just that there weren't enough resources for them either to go to higher education, but they are doing very well. At the end of the day, there is no difference between you and I and a refugee. It's only that you have access to better education and you've done well. So it's just giving really that platform for them to thrive. And that is really the difference, I think, is to create an environment for them to live their full potential, which is through the many different pathways. And I think, of course, a very critical one is, of course, education, but also business for those who have the capacity to do good business. And I think, you know, because we are Kenyan, is also, you know, they can pay taxes, they can contribute to the exchequer,
to the economy,
because if you're doing great business, it's okay to. And if you look at other models across the world, we talk often of, for example, in Jordan, refugees contributed greatly to the local economy. So I think it's looking at the successes that are out there and seeing what can be localized into this context. And I think business is definitely one avenue, because it will serve both ways. And if we're able, for example, to build Garissa and Turkana in collaboration, in partnership, through what the refugees can contribute into that economy. Okay. And I think if you went there practically, you would be surprised about their capacities, about their passion, and just to be driven by the desire that my individual life can be better, and I control it because I do business and I take care of my family.
Let me pick from where Stella has left in regards to the Refugee Act of 2021, a very good piece of legislation. And it introduced a number of legal measures granting refugees additional rights and also opportunities for inclusion. But now, in the wake of diminished funding, how does donor funding hinder the full implementation of this progressive legislation? And also, you can touch on Shirika Plan, because it is also embedded in this law.
Section 28.8 of the Act provides that the refugees can be able to do entrepreneurship as an individual or as a group or as an association. It means, as Sarah has mentioned, that entrepreneurship, micro businesses and the bigger businesses is what we are looking at. And obviously the contribution for respective individual refugees and businesses towards the economy in terms of tax and revenue. What we have today, I want to take you back to 2018. The survey that was conducted by International Finance Corporation, IFC, in Kakuma, that found that there is a liquidity circulation of 50 billion annually within Kakuma. Meaning that is an economy on its own, that if it is harnessed, and that is the reason why they are interesting the private sector to go and invest in this area. In relation to government, we have developed Shirika Plan. Shirika Plan is a multi-year, multi-agency and multi-sector blueprint.
For how long are we looking at?
9 years.
From March of 2025?
Yes. We have 3 phases. Phase 1 is transition, where we expect that we do a lot of capacity building, a lot of systems development, policy reform, amendments to regulations and laws that would support now the rollout of Shirika Plan. We are also looking at integrated services. Today we are only accessing them education, health and water, and security. We want to expand that to agriculture. We want to expand that to entrepreneurship. We want to expand that to other skills and talents that they would be able to support them. As you are aware, nationally, of course, we have the aspect of the unemployment of the Kenyan citizens. So when we say that we are going to provide jobs for refugees, that is a lie. We would only say that we are going to develop a conducive environment for their entrepreneurship, for their self-reliance development. And last month, on 30th May, the government gazetted the telecommunication subscribers regulations, legal notice number 90. And at section 5E, it talks about the refugee owning a SIM card. And therefore, getting access to M-Pesa, getting access to online services, online businesses that they can do Bitcoin also. You never know. We are very techno-savvy refugees, courtesy of a barcode arrangement or training that has been done by UNHCR and partners in Kakuma, where I am the code, supports the host girls as well as the refugee girls in learning coding. And I'm talking about leveraging how refugees can leverage on technology. And that is one of the steps in KYC, the Know Your Customer, where the refugees, about over 500,000, will be joining the telcos. And that makes a lot of difference in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of self-reliance, in terms of not registering your SIM card by proxy. Today, many of them have registered by proxy. But back to Shirika Plan, the three pillars of systems building, human skills and capital development, as well as integrated services, are the first core in terms of the transition. This is where we are supporting access, broadened access to education, access to health, including mental health support, prenatal, postnatal, all those activities to support the refugees. We are looking also at the environmental intervention. What are the climate related? You know that the refugee activity and hosting in Dadaab and Kakuma has affected a lot of environment in terms of the shrubs. The trees that were there have been cut because they use wood fuel. Alternatives in terms of LPG and solarization of facilities, including the boreholes. So all these are the interventions that will come with Shirika Plan. But the bottom line also is, as we are looking at self-reliance under Shirika Plan and sustainability of livelihoods, transformation of camps into integrated settlements, support through the World Bank and UN Habitat in the transformation of the habitations, we must first address the aspect of the humanitarian intervention, the daily food that one has to be able to look at. So Shirika Plan is long-term. Transition, stabilization, and resilience, going up to 2036. But in between here, what are we going to do? For every birth that is recorded in Kenya, we register. What is that child in the next 9 years as we implement Shirika Plan going to undertake? So those are the issues that we must be able to look at from a humanitarian perspective. Even as government is obligated, we need to be able to see the balance between humanitarian support, the international obligation, the national obligation, and obviously the rollout of Shirika Plan as a long-term solution to the intervention and sustainability of refugee hosting.
And because of the interest of time, when we come back, we'll be telling us what you're doing to curb the challenges that you are facing, and especially when it comes to security, because leave alone that the fact that we do not have adequate funding, but also there are security challenges on a normal day-to-day life. Stella, I'm looking at some of the projects that you guys are working on, and especially to empower these refugees, and especially in the wake of also, I'm quite sure you've also been hit by the reduced funding as well. Yeah. Or some upcoming as well.
So I think just to speak broadly, the operation is significantly affected, and I think in terms of the solutions, one solid one, of course, then is the collaboration and looking into the leadership of government into implementing the Shirika Plan that provides some of the solutions. But also it just means that we are looking into being more efficient, looking at I would say, looking at the way we have set our programs, and, it means, for example, bringing different types of programs together, merging different sectors and things like this. So I think for us is obviously trying to operate together and more efficiently, and actually also collaborating with government as well in programs, because most of the international organizations have huge experience and skill that they have brought into the operation. So we're hoping that really together we can progress. And I want to still commend that our donors or our international partners continue to be steadfast and to collaborate with us, and just ensuring that even though the situation is challenging, we are working together to ensure that we are defending the basic needs of the affected community, and taking the small steps to ensure that we are protecting really the investments of the last 30 years. That is education, is also tapping into the wealth of the people, and a lot of the work and the way we are working is putting actually refugees at the center of the response, because they know how better they can get the services. And sometimes if there is insecurity, or during COVID-19, they have led the responses. That means they have the wealth of knowledge, which is what we want to continue protecting and ensuring that it's continuing. And as Phil made, what we are keen on is, of course, to ensure that ecosystem of information, community awareness and engagement and dialogue, as it will be for all of us, to stay in dialogue enables us also to understand each other and address the challenges that may be there.
All right. You will be telling us how you are circumventing security challenges, among others, but let's quickly take a quick break, but we'll be right back. We are discussing the plight of the refugees, and especially in the wake of reduced funding. And as Commissioner is talking about, something needs to be done. We are at 30% and we are only going lower. From 60 to 45 to 30, we need to do something. Remember, the World Refugee Day is celebrated every 20th of June every year. So this is a very timely conversation. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
They say the earth without art would just be, get it? We circumnavigate the globe and traverse the local scene to bring you art and culture at their very best. From fine art, culinary art, performing arts, and even cultural events, you name it, and we have got you covered. My name is Kevin Kasioki, and I will be serving you this and much, much more each and every Friday at 8 p.m. only on KBC Channel 1.
Nimeua mtu kweli? Haujaua. Alafu basi nipeleke pole pole. Wote niongee na huyu. Lakini unapatanga advertisement, si ndio?
Sasa advertisement ikitokea kama haoni atajuaje?
Please, I'm not asking you. I'm asking you here. Why do you vacuum people in the stomach? Which? The English now is coming out. 50,000 pocket money. Mtoto ende kiaribu.
Hiyo ni kama si ni change kidogo, pesa kidogo ambayo ndio.
Umesikia, market that kwa
Friday night again. Greetings in the name of the Most High, Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice, we
have to do it twice.
Welcome back to News Check. We're on the tail end of this conversation. We are looking at the plight of refugees when it comes to socio-economic inclusion and in the wake of reduced donor funding. Again, I have John Burugo, who is the Commissioner for Refugee Affairs in Kenya. Just next to me, we have Stella Suge, who is the Executive Director, Film Aid Kenya. And Commissioner and Director, kindly, because of the interest of time, what exactly are you doing because of security?
We have had a lot of challenges, including radicalization, IEDs in the camps, where we also have, in Kakuma, we had interclan fights, occasioning about 3,000 to migrate to Roiro. We had to take them back. We have security challenges. We also have small arms infiltrating from South Sudan, where we have all these kind of challenges. And what we are doing is collaborating with the international community, principally UNHCR. We have a partnership on managing security, where they are equipped with the necessary vehicles and other equipments to support and ensure that we are managing the camps remain secure. However, moving forward, we are also integrating the host community and the refugees in peace building, because it is a long term. The security personnel are just a number, very few against the 800,000 and also the host community. So the coexistence of the various communities, we have 26 nationalities within our camps, and meaning therefore we need to be able to get a balance, an accommodation and tolerance where the various communities live with each other, peacefully coexist, and they are able to act their living and sustainably support each other in the journey of life. So we are working both as enhancing security in terms of government, but also on the other part, working with partners, Film Aid included, in terms of building peace. And the National Cohesion for Integration Commission also has a 2-year program where they are building peace, principally also in Kakuma camp. And therefore, we have a multifaceted approach in relation to tackling the security. But insecurity remains a major challenge, even when we are doing the humanitarian assistance to the refugees. I want to end by requesting and inviting Kenyans to join us on Friday when we have celebrated World Refugee Day with the theme of in solidarity with the refugees, where the communities want to feel that we are working, empathizing with them in this journey of displacement and conflict-related flight.
Where exactly will be the celebration?
We will be at the Kenya Christian Industrial Training Institute
KCCT.
at Isili. That is where we will be in Nairobi. But also in the camps, Dadaab and Kakuma, Dagahare in Dadaab, and in Kakuma, they will also be at Kakuma Stadium.
And Stella, as we wrap up, what can you tell us in regards to what we are looking forward to? Because from the statistics, they don't look very encouraging in terms of funding.
So I think there's definitely different perspectives to look at this. And just for me as a Kenyan, is really to say that the people who are in our country are actually just our neighbors. They are all our brothers. So I think to really keep the empathy, when we talk about in solidarity, it just means that it's really looking at each person. It's not to generalize. There may be issues within, but a lot of those people have been displaced for reasons beyond themselves. So it's really to keep the empathy for the people that are within our countries. And each individual person, in fact, really can make a difference. And just to give an example, one of our alumni, who's also the Nansen Award winner, Abdullahi Mire, at individual level has been able to rally support for education, not as an NGO, not as a donor, but at a personal level. Each person can make a difference. So I think we need to change our mindset about our brothers and sisters who've been forcibly displaced and have come into our country. And I think one of the key players that could step up is also the private sector. We are talking about close to 1 million people. That's a massive economy, for which also, as we are making strides on the policy level, operationalizing the act, it just means that it's opening up from the business front, and it means the private sector can actually engage and be present in the Durban Kakuma refugee camps.
Maybe Commissioner, you wrap it up for us?
I believe that where the refugees are here with us, it is important. First is to understand from where they have come from in relation to the humanitarian challenges of safety and security, which we are providing as a government. And again, to appeal to Kenyans to understand that refugees, nobody wishes to be a refugee. Refugees are also human. And that is why our act also provides that we respect the human rights of the refugees. We accord them the freedoms. We give them the opportunity to make a difference in their lives, to recollect the pieces that were lost from when they sought the flight, while hosting them in the country. It is our commitments as a government to meet our international obligation, but also call upon the international community to step forward, because the uncertainties that are there in durable solutions of resettlement, voluntary repatriation, and expecting that the government will wholly take the localization durable solution alone is not fair. And we would want to have a fair environment in which the refugees feel at home, and the strain on the Kenyan government and the citizenry is not there. That there is also the expectation of the international community meeting its part of the bargain.
Thank you. That has been the Commissioner for Refugee Affairs, Bwana John Mburugu, and we also have Stella Suge, who is Executive Director, Film Aid Kenya. We have been looking at the socio-economic inclusion of refugees as we observe the World Refugee Day on 20th of June. And as Commissioner has said, indeed, we are not... the refugees are not going anywhere, so we really need to find ways of ensuring that even their stay is made a little bit conducive in the wake of reduced donor funding. Many thanks indeed for joining us on this first hour. On this second hour, we are looking at people, power, politics, and everything around it. And also we are keeping tabs with the Albert, and also we are looking at what is currently happening in Nairobi of the country. We're coming back after. Today we are highlighting the life and times in the cabinet of George Muhoho. Muhoho joined politics when he left priesthood and ventured into politics in the 1983 polls when he contested and won the Juja parliamentary seat. It is believed that his decision to join elective politics was influenced by the experience of his brother-in-law, Kenya's founding president, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Prior to that, Muhoho was ordained as a Catholic priest in 1963 and served the church in various administrative capacities. At one time, Muhoho the priest rose through the ranks of the Catholic Church to serve as private secretary to Pope IV. In addition to service to the Pope, Muhoho was the first black African Pope or envoy to Brussels, Luxembourg, the Council of Europe, and NATO. Muhoho left it all behind to enter local politics, and after his win in 1983, President Moi appointed him Assistant Minister for Education, later elevating him to Minister for Tourism and Wildlife in 1987. As Tourism Minister, Muhoho is credited with using his connections abroad to market the country as a preferred tourist destination. Under President Moi, his notable efforts included fighting poaching, especially of elephants in Kenya, which had become rampant in the late 80s. After his cabinet exit, Muhoho, together with Mwai Kibaki, Njenga Karume, and John Keane, founded the Democratic Party DP, and he was very instrumental in ensuring President Mwai Kibaki became president in the 2002 general election. In 2004, President Mwai Kibaki appointed Muhoho as Director General of Kenya Airports Authority (KAA), where he is credited with overseeing the construction of a new modern wing at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and a new airport in Kisumu City. However, in 2008, The Efficiency Monitoring Unit raised questions over the expenditure of 1.7 billion shillings on contracts by KAA. The unit, together with the Inspectorate of State Corporations, revealed the KAA board and management had failed to comply with regulations in the awarding of contracts. He left the position in 2010, after which he joined other members of the Kenyatta family to campaign for Uhuru Kenyatta, who became the 4th president of Kenya. In 2017, Muhoho also campaigned for President Uhuru to retain his seat and eventually left the political stage to oversee the vast Kenyatta family businesses. For the cabinet, I'm Njue. Welcome back to News Check, and many thanks indeed for joining us. Early on, we had Lensa Odingo on the bottom of your screen right now. The lovely lady there is Susan Thuku. On the second hour, as I had mentioned earlier, we are looking at the state of people power politics in the country. And of course, what has really grabbed the headlines of late is the death of Albert Ojwang in police custody. And everything, the politics and actually the investigation surrounding that. And why I'm saying this is because what we knew as a country in the beginning is not what we know now, begging a lot of questions. But yesterday we did see the Interior Cabinet Secretary Onesmus Kipchumba Murkomen there announcing some police reforms that he said some will take time, some will be done immediately. That is something that I think is also key to us as a country when we talk about police reforms. And also we are looking at our streets in Nairobi. You do remember on Thursdays a number of youths did make their way into town, some of which turned out chaotic, to protest in solidarity with Albert Ojwang. But we'll be looking at that plus much, much more. Allow me to now rope in my panel of experts. Thank you indeed so much, gentlemen, for making time. Beginning from my immediate left, we have Kimani Mwangi, who is a governance and a political analyst as well. Just next to him, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Umepotea sana. It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Yeah. Just next to him, we have Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan, who is a leadership and governance expert. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
And I know you hold a very, very dear part of security in your heart, both as a leader and also as a politician. And I'm looking at the police reforms. Some people yesterday did mention that this could be a knee-jerk reaction by the government because these are some of the things that should have come earlier on, including some of the things that we were told by the CS that the government will be keen to look at going forward. I would like your take in regards to the police reforms announced yesterday by CS.
Ben, thank you very much. I think when we are getting time to discuss issues that matters,
yes,
I think we need to take significant time and thought to make sure that Kenyans understand what goes on around them, so that we see generally if it is of beneficial to them or not. And of course, the bigger challenge is when our government quite often have what you just said as a knee-jerk response. I don't think if police require strategic, reform documents, there are quite a number of reform documents that have already been put in place. The only thing that we are lacking is that allocation. We rarely allocate to the reforms that we desire. Quite often we talk about reforms when issues arises. But when it comes to a matter of allocating resources, resources are allocated for things which are not a priority to the community, as well as the arms that are likely to deliver services directly to the community. So the issue is not about the reform. These reforms have been echoed in several reports. Remember, there was a report report. Maraga's report came in heavily and say, indeed, we do not need to have a lot of policy on reforms. We need implementation of those reforms. We have not seen any steps towards implementation of those reforms. And therefore, whenever there is an issue, Kenyans will want to draw again another document to show that something is being done. Indeed, what is necessary for now, as a matter of urgency, is the Parliament to allocate enough resources to the National Police Service in order for them to put in place the necessary reform measures that has already been documented and has been put into policies. The other component is reforms, which are, there is an issue that has initiated the reforms, whereby it's only in Kenya where when you are a complainant and unfortunately become a senior police officer, you are judged by the society. You are judged by human rights groups. You are judged by politicians from different quarters, and you are judged by tribes from who do not belong to your tribe. Meaning, yesterday, the Deputy Inspector General of Police has stepped aside. How will a complainant, someone who is a complainant, who has taken his complaint to the relevant authority, regardless of his rank, influence an investigation that is carried out by an independent authority from the police? Because IPOA do not report to the Deputy Inspector General of Police, even the Inspector General of Police. They are an independent entity. By any means, if this investigation would have been carried out by the police mainstream, whether it is DCI or any other body within the police mainstream, then there is a cause for alarm. But this, at any one time, the police has no role in what has happened because they are the ones who are under the radar. They are being investigated. And therefore, when you ask someone in his office, just you resign, you leave the office, you should be arrested. We have politicized our institutions, and to the extent that when it is not your turn, we beat the drums on the wrong side. And when it comes to your side, you come and complain, say that the police are not doing their work. So generally, I do not understand the pressure that has made the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Mr. Langat, to step aside. In any case, he will not go into...
Should he have done that a little bit, maybe earlier?
No,
it
was not actually necessary to do it. I have told you.
But you have seen yourself.
Globally. No, the pressure. These are judgments from politicians inciting and giving young people money to come and cause chaos. The Thursday demonstration in Nairobi was not called for. Why do you destroy people's property? How do you expect police officers to come and support
you feel that he shouldn't have resigned?
He should. Actually, there's no ground globally. I mean, we have gone to many countries. We know how things work. There is a public interest. But when you are a public interest means Mr. Langat will have stepped aside if he was not a complainant. If his police officers have done crime within police station, the fact that he is the commander of those police officers, then there is a reason for him to step aside because he will have protected his police officers. This particular incident, he is a complainant like any other person. Njue will wake up and go to a police station and complain against anyone who has offended him. Any other business that are committed by people on the ground or the people who are mandated to do that work, they should carry their cross. But victimizing people, we are setting a wrong precedency that is likely to work against us when we are not on the correct side of the law. The time will come. And therefore, I think the police reform that the Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Murkomen, has elaborately stated yesterday it would have been something that they would have done long ago. They shouldn't have waited an incident that relates to this. CCTVs were present in some of the stations. Others weren't there because of resources. Go to the police stations. Have you seen police stations and their offices? Even in the city, they look like slum centers. Why are the police stations are not given priority for them to be modern and build a very good, like for example, Central Police Station is at the heart of the CBD. It will have been an establishment that will have been modern, that anyone who comes in can even be screened by the walls of that structure. But now it's a shanty place where vehicles which have died 10 years ago are parked, and the offices are as good as cages of people who are living in distracted properties, where there are no even clear comfort of the person who is operating there. So the fault should be with the people who are supposed to provide resources for that particular purpose. If resources are available and proper office structures are put in place and proper cells, this wouldn't have happened.
All right. I would like to pick your mind, Kim, because Daktari holds a different opinion in regards to the stepping down, not resignation. But in a country that, or in the part of the world where resigning is not an option for many, some have even said that they would rather die than resign, I totally feel that maybe it was the right time for him to step aside. Maybe he stepped aside a little bit late in the whole saga. I'm looking at the internet for the last couple of days. The DIG stepped down, resigned. I'd like to pick your mind in regards to that and the reforms that were announced yesterday by the Interior CS, Kipchumba Murkomen.
There are things we can't run away from. One is that those who hold public office hold it for public good. And they must hold it in trust of the public, and therefore those are not their offices. Now, when a DIG in Kenya makes a complaint, we are not even sure he made one. In fact, by law, in strict interpretation of the law, what they did was abducting the young man. Because when you are arrested, they haven't been able to provide evidence that DIG in fact, had an OB, let alone the fabrications that we've been treated to in the media. This is a man who misuses his office. Somebody writes something he doesn't like about him.
Yes.
So he says, because I'm the DIG, then I will show this young man that I'm a powerful man you don't play around with. So he misuses public funds to have people from Nairobi go get a young man almost 400 kilometers away to bring him to Central Police Station.
I think we've already canvassed that up to them.
I want to explain my thoughts about it.
Okay.
And then when the young man is killed in cold blood, then all of a sudden he said he was a complainant, and that is why the young man was gotten from wherever to the... Then when I want you to look at even when he steps aside. There is nothing in law called stepping aside. The law is very clear. When a person is implicated and you are an officer of NPS, you are interdicted or you resign. Interdiction means that is now the formal stepping aside. You no longer receive your salary. You are a man of interest in this case. If you are cleared, you get your dues in accruals and you resume your office.
Actually, you can't even leave the country.
This man, there is a statement from a police officer that he ordered the torture of the dead. If he did not have to do it in person, what makes you think that he cannot interfere with investigations just because he has let his junior to hold the office for him? Now hold on, let me finish. You had your time.
I just want to give you one clarification. I just want to give you one clarification.
I too could have given clarification. I didn't. You had your time.
Kindly, gentlemen, just let him finish up, because I also have something in regards to the
in actual sense, in a working democracy, National Police Service should have interdicted the DIG immediately information came that he could have had a hand in what happened. If he was a man of honor, which exactly he's not, he would have resigned to allow for investigations to go on, right? Parading yourself in a pressure where misinformation is fed to Kenyans, right? And you only step aside, which is in any way not legal, There's nothing called stepping aside. What is stepping aside in actual sense, by the way? It is taking some leave days, and you leave your junior to hold your office. If apparently, and as it has been alleged, you did not have to do it personally, you take us for fools to imagine that because you've taken leave days, now you are okay and investigations can't be interfered with.
All right, let's go to the actual part in regards to the reforms.
Yes.
I get where he's coming from in regards to, and I believe the CS did observe that. He said even if you're a CS or even if you're, it doesn't matter which position you hold, but going forward, you will have to make a formal complaint. You do remember that there was no.
So why was he insisting on formal? Because there wasn't any formal complaint.
Exactly. That is why I'm talking about. It's a good thing that you observed that, because the CS say that going forward, even if it's Dr. Hassan, even if it's me, even if it's Kamau, even if it's a deputy president, even if it's a president, he has to make a formal complaint to the police. These are some of the things that we always overlook, which are very essential. Because if that happened, then we'll be having a clear structure of what exactly happened, as opposed to now where we are jumping up and down.
Ben, I think it is good for us to speak with a bit of decorum, to speak with genuineness and not street judgments. The Deputy Inspector General of Police has been confirmed making a report or complaint by the Inspector General of Police, and he made it to the Director General of CID, the Criminal Investigation Bureau.
But
and
that is not right.
Those has been confirmed.
Any formal complaint, Daktari, has to be made in an official police station.
Do we have?
You don't have to jump, or because you're holding a senior position, you just don't make phone calls. You should have gone, just like CS said yesterday, you should have made a complaint, and going forward, they say that they will be making a formal complaint. Not
the CID headquarters is a police station.
He didn't do that. Let's be very honest, Daktari.
No.
He did not go to the police station.
This has been confirmed. You know, we do not want to read things behind the curtain.
Yes.
What we are reading is what we have been informed. What is in the document for the investigators, IPOA, are the facts. That is the people who will tell us whether there was a proper OB which was put in place. And of course, that is where they will pick the initial stages of their investigation. And therefore, this has not been confirmed to us by anyone other than them. And because it's a matter that is being investigated, they do not want to disclose. But the issue of making judgments based on what you think or what some activists have said will be a very wrong directions to go, because if it is you who will have been in his shoes, then you will have said you are being victimized for no reason. But so the bottom line is that,
without fairness, he did not follow the right procedure.
He did according to what we have been told. If there was no formal,
If there was actually the CS wouldn't have made that statement. I was right here where I'm seated when the CS made a 45-48 minutes.
Ben, let's get to reality
and said going forward.
Let's get to reality. No. Let's get to reality.
Can I speak?
Let's get to reality. The reality is that the formal, you know, there are several formal way of doing complaint. You can call the station and report, and the person who is receiving your complaint records it. It's not must you go to a police station. That's
we have an isolated case here. He didn't have to make calls. He should have done. He should lead by example.
Ben, can I say something?
Yes. He should have made a formal.
Daktari can spin all he wants.
Gentlemen, I wanted us to be very objective in this conversation.
We are going objectively with this purpose.
Fact number one is that the IG himself misled the public.
I think we are past that.
No. I want to show you why we can't even rely on what they tell us. First is that the spokesman of the police misled the public, intentionally or otherwise.
And actually the IG did apologize for that.
The IG did the same.
Yes.
Now telling us that we rely on the same information of the misinformants, then that is spinning.
I think that is why we have
a police in custody, a police officer in custody, who wrote down his statement from where I'm deriving all that he said about what happened, right? Now, if that is innuendos and his evidence, then what he's doing is spinning for whatever side he is. The other thing is, we saw goons on the day he says that the demonstrations were not called for. Demonstrations is part of our constitution dispensation. It is enshrined in the constitution. The requirement it be peaceful.
Yeah.
Now, when we see 2 cars burned, the youth were very quick to check with NTSA records, and those number plates.
All right.
I
wouldn't want us
not exist
to go
for years.
because at the end of the day,
when we have politicians
I totally understand.
eating their cake and they still want to have it, then we must call out their lies.
The investigations are currently underway, and we do not have sufficient proof in regards to that. Because if we did, I believe those people should be inside by now.
Yeah,
True of us.
Yeah, you know,
but we can also not walk out of our skins. We can change who we are. Telling us that all we need is to put CCTV cameras in police stations.
I again repeat. My brother is making allegations that he has no proof.
And that is why
these investigations are going on.
Just like the Daktari
Can we wait until this investigation, the end tail of this investigation?
Actually, why
I'm even shocked that he says that the stepping down was uncalled for.
It's actually uncalled for.
How now?
How will that contribute or help in the investigation of
when you are subject to investigation?
Gentlemen,
he is not in the subject of investigation.
Actually, nobody
has not been mentioned anyway.
But the moment you've been mentioned by
who?
Somebody held in custody for having committed a crime. This person mentions you as having given the order. At that moment, you are a suspect.
I think we are going out of...
No. At that moment, you are a suspect.
We are governed by constitutions. We are ruled by laws.
Exactly.
We don't do anything that we want.
Gentlemen,
I have not seen Langat being called for even interrogation, meaning then the investigators have not yet seen anything linking him to the process of this. Other than reporting. So we cannot talk about that until he is related to that or associated with him. And investigators questions him. That's the time we can say he may have had some involvement. But I do not think if that is...
Okay, fine. We leave that to the investigators, and of course that is why we will see we are not canvassing anything that is already in court under investigations.
But what I'm looking at... the bar too low. People don't come give us misinformation when you tell them to apologize. We should fire them for that.
Yeah, but unfortunately,
it's setting the bar.
I remember he was in Parliament and he was also in Senate, and unfortunately, he was not reprimanded for that.
No, but NPS should interdict these fellas. You don't come to public and lie, and then you apologize.
I totally agree with you.
When evidence
Everybody should
out.
be held accountable. If you lie, you should just don't say, I'm sorry for the information.
And this, for me, it is not about the DIG only.
Away
it's
from
even
that.
about the police spokesman, the IG himself, for having lied to the public about death of a Kenyan.
All right. Now, we have very good policies. And just like Doc observed that, you find that there are so many commissions. We even had the Maraga one, the latest one, which gave out a list of maybe some of the reforms that should be in the police force. But, police service. We started our police reforms a little while ago, when we were a police force. Now we are police service. But, gentlemen, we have very good policies. What about the implementation? How would you what would you say in regards to our
Then the biggest problem about our national police service, we should call it national police force, because that is what it is. With all the brutality we see being meted on people by the same force, let's not lie to ourselves calling it service. It is not. It does not serve our interest. Now, let me give you a simple scenario. You report a case to police, to any police station, and you even have to bribe them to come and to the scene of crime. Your house has been broken to.
I've experienced that.
The first thing they tell you at Wekagari Mafutas, these guys don't serve us. Then they are so brutal. Imagine the number of cases we have of these police officers. There was another one of a woman who was giving birth on a cold floor.
Actually, the police service has not had a very good month of June.
Now, every day we are treated to brutality, some inhumane treatment by these people, every day. And then we think that the biggest problem we have is underfunding them. In fact, what we have, in my opinion, and I'm sorry to put it this way, we have a legalized mafia. No, hold on. That's my opinion.
It's your opinion, but unfortunately
I'll explain it.
We are on national television.
You have a traffic offense. The first thing they do is to ask you for bribe, not to take you to court.
But there are some who take you to court.
How many out of 10? You know, we must speak truth.
We must speak truth to ourselves and say, we cannot just...
We badly
that's
need...
That's a blanket condemnation.
It's my opinion.
Unfortunately, we are a national broadcaster.
Yes,
and
it's my opinion that what we have is a big problem that we must... It's a bigger problem that we must face head on.
Let's look at
if the National Police Service is ready to help, then the police service must work for the people because it exists in service of the people.
All right, Daktari, how do we ensure, just a minute, how do we ensure we drop the tag of police force? Because that is what we had earlier before we became police service. How do we drop that and foster better inclusion? We have police now embedded in us. I remember a long time ago, they were more or less confined to one place, but now they live with us. And a number of reforms have also been mooted, and some have already started, because the moment that we heard about a CCTV camera, many Kenyans didn't even know that some of the police stations did have CCTV cameras.
Ben, allow me to say this. There are over 50 million Kenyans living in this country, and they are protected by police officers every night. You know, if someone has not seen insecurity in where he lives, he will not even know the role of the police officers. I'm not defending isolated cases where you will find an individual or a police officer behaving otherwise from the routine way of his responsibility. But generally, if an element of weakness in the police service is realized, we will be ruled by goons and thugs, and we will not even sleep in our beds, the comfort that we have now, and wake up in the morning and come and make our opinions, judgmental opinions in national television. So I think that is one. Secondly, in regards to the police reform, as earlier mentioned, I do not think we need reforms to be documented. They are already there as policies.
They should be implemented.
They should be implemented, and we should be on the implementation phase. I had a conversation recently with the Inspector General of Police, Mr. Kanja, and he mentioned to me that the important thing that we need now is the implementation, and he's doing all things that is possible to do that. And people are supporting him, including the CS, in regards to the implementation. And that's why yesterday he came out very clearly and said that police requires reform. The budget is allocated by executive and approved by parliament. If parliamentarians debate on this financial year 2025-2026 and say, can we prioritize all the things that we have budgeted for and give everything that police require, then the problems that we are talking about will end. How do you expect a police officer to walk from a station, go to a locality of around 5-10 kilometers on either foot or a motorcycle? You have seen police officers on top of the Nduthi. How come, with their own uniform, to go and respond to a crime? That is also things that needs to be put into consideration. And therefore, if we don't facilitate the police service, then the police service will become a police force. So it's all about the governance and the leadership of the country that needs to prioritize things and make sure that this is addressed effectively. We should not respond to an isolated cases and blanketly condemn the police forces. My brother has not been, I have lived in almost 18 countries that are of conflict with no government and no police. People protect themselves using their tribesmen to protect them. And you can't even sleep the whole night. Any sound, including a pen dropping on the floor of a house, you will wake up and thinking that it's a bullet that has reached into your bedroom. So if you have not seen that, then you will think of doing what we are doing. But if we know that peace is one ultimate thing that we require, then we know that we will contribute as a society to the National Police Service in order for them to be facilitated to do their work.
You did. And gentlemen, when we are looking at these police reforms, I appreciate the fact that in as much as in the last couple of days, the police force has really been stoned, and sentiments coming left, right and center that we need reforms in the police service. We also need to appreciate the good that they do. And actually the CS did observe that yesterday, noting that in as much as there are police officers who are working towards ensuring that the rule of law is observed, there are excesses in the police when it comes to their work as well. And without the glass half full or half empty, the reforms that have been mooted, and Doc has talked about, we don't even need reforms. Whatever we have is enough to be implemented and have a workable and conducive environment when we talk about police and Kenyans. I'd like to pick your man on that. Now the glass half full. It has been half empty, I think, for the last couple of weeks for the police force.
It's very. I don't know. I don't have the right word to put it, but what flares my anger is the way as Kenyans we look at things. Firstly, we are here saying that what matters most is peace, and that as long as we have peace, we are not wrong to turn a blind eye to the police excesses. It's called emotional.
No. We haven't. Kindly, we wouldn't want us to get that out.
No. What I'm saying is, it is good that we have peace. We appreciate it, but we must call out a service when much of what it does, besides what it exists for, is its excesses.
Yes.
And we cannot keep singing about reforms without doing them in actual sense. Whether you are a police officer or not, anybody who breaks law must know that the repercussions are so dire that they can do it tomorrow. But by the way, the only way to have people follow the law is to make it so expensive to break the law. Now, if I drove and exceeded the speed, and I knew that if I'm caught, I'm not going to walk away because I've given 1,000, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. Now, if somebody breaks the law because they think they have the power to break the law, the only way to stop it from recurrent is making it, or the deterrent, so expensive for them, so that people know that we have systems that work. In fact, this has never been a problem of bad police officers. It's a problem of a bad system within which police officers operate, whereby a police officer commits a crime and we are here holding them with velvet gloves. So then it becomes a habit among them. So we really need to look at this police force and say, yes, it is true we have a functional police force. It is true that we have police officers wielding guns around and making sure we are safe. All that is true. But then we cannot allow them to exist in a system whereby all that is called upon of somebody who's been implicated in a cold murder is to step aside and go home, enjoy your days with kids, while some other guys are sleeping on a cold floor for the same crime, right? As in, we must have a law not reduced to a cobweb, whereby it catches for us the small insects only, and the big animals trample it and go unpunished. The moment we make it understood by everybody that anytime you break the law in Kenya, the hand of the law will catch up with you and justice will be served, then people will start behaving. We are not going to see these things we are calling isolated cases that have become one too many among police officers. We'll see police officers that treat you humanly because they know the law requires you to do so, reads you your rights, when they come to arrest you, and they don't come and put those things they put on your hand that they keep cutting your skin, even when you are compliant. The law is very clear that if you come to arrest me and I'm compliant, you don't even have to put handcuffs on me. It is only when I'm resisting, because handcuffs are to restrain me. You don't put handcuffs on somebody and drive 400 kilometers with them on a handcuff in a car and he's not jumping off and all that, because that is mistreatment, is denying people their rights, and that is why you see us angry at it. We're not angry because we are these people who live in suburbs where there is peace and that we don't appreciate that the police exist to give peace. We are angry because, that notwithstanding, there is a code of conduct and ethics that even the police must adhere to. And these must be made to work, not to be seen to work. And that is where the difference lies. That this implementation, the implementation of all these reports we've gathered all along years, there was Gregor's report that brought us about the police reforms. Yeah? We saw the chariot those years when the police were being asked questions of their M-Pesa transactions and all those things, and we are back to where we were before then. So then we must ask ourselves a question: until when must we go in circles? We must mean it, we must make it work, and Kenyans must feel that the police service exists for them. That if I report a crime, I should feel that the police really cares. Funding is one of the problems, but the bigger problem is the wiring of the police officers themselves. Rogue, power unto themselves. This can't be allowed to happen. Yeah.
All right. And still on matters governance, even the court observed that the tempo that we are already in, the political drums, we are beating the political drums a little bit too early, and they said that this should be ceased. That should be stopped. But unfortunately, that is the same thing that we are having. We are always on a political mood. That cannot guarantee matter security, Dr.
Yeah, I think there are two things that needs to be put into consideration. One, the behavior of the society that is linked to the service providers. And unfortunately, the only visible service provider within the government is the police. There are quite a number of other service providers. Probably there are issues that we can talk about it. But because the police appears every other event, for example, in our political events, police must be present, whether you are for the ruling party or the opposition party. The second thing that I think we need to look into is the behavior of our political wing, where you come out of a general election today and within 3 months you start again campaigns for the next election. That is done by both the winners and the losers, and we go in between all this time to see the consequences of these two giants causing, and the innocent people suffer there. For example, police must be present in where opposition rallies are. But in that rally, there are goons who are also kept there by the opposition to come and destabilize the police so that they don't push them.
Yeah, but the point is that we shouldn't be having those campaigns.
Absolutely. We should have a reform, or rather laws that governs when political rallies should begin. And I don't think if also we are lacking anything. It's only that Kenyans have decided to become, a gadget for misuse of freedom of speech and gathering. Because in some countries, you see a police recently in the demonstration, a young man was sharpening his machetes in front of the police officers, which was in the social media. In other countries, that young man will have been shot, simply because that is a weapon. Before we migrated to guns, we were using machetes, arrows, and spears. So it is categorized as a weapon. And therefore,
we need to
if it is supposed to be demonstration,
we should obey the
we must obey
decision.
the law as per the way it has been prescribed. The moment we start compromising some issues, because saying that, oh, this is human right, or this is it, we will going to lose the grip, and we'll be off the grip, and Kenya will not be in a good shape.
Yeah.
We have stayed in this country when our neighbors have gone into disaster. We sustained ourselves for many years to see whether we can be much better than our neighbors who have lost their governance and leadership system. And therefore, if we lose that as well, then the impact will be more severe for us, as we have already invested in this country largely, than even our neighbors who have not invested in their countries very much, and they can fight over it. Therefore, what I think is that politics should be regulated and should be stopped. We should not have a politics from the day of election. Once government comes into place, the government should show Kenyans the services that they are supposed to deliver for the period of the 5 years. If there is isolated cases, for example, in a by-election, it has its own time for politicians to politic so that that seat is replaced. A leader is elected for that purpose. But generally, I think we are being distorted by our political games. We are being distorted that our misunderstanding of the constitution and of course the right of Kenyans in terms of right to speak, right to do anything you want. No, we must follow the law to the letter so that we have people who are being controlled by their own systems.
Yeah, still on the same, I was reading a thesis by a certain professor that the problems of the political problems that Africa has could be solved by making their politics less lucrative. Look at an MP. An average Kenyan doesn't earn more than 100,000 shillings. But when you look at MP, and I see Daktari is very keen because he wants to be one point something million. Our politics are so severe that we make them so lucrative and also very dangerous as well. We've seen MPs. How many MPs have been shot dead? How many people have been maimed because somebody is seeking a certain seat? So if at all we made our politics less lucrative, we could improve our governance. I would like to pick your mind.
Firstly, it's good to state that the Constitution is clear, that freedom must be accompanied by responsibility. And the law exists to ensure that even as you enjoy your freedom, it is attached to some level of responsibility to which you must account. The danger with ourselves is that we let the hyena become the judge where the victim or the culprit is the sheep. He cannot get justice. We have cut too much slack to the politicians that they are the owner of the system. Now, politicians don't go to these positions because of the mayor's salary. It is because of the impunity these positions give them. A bad system. An MP will kill, because you've seen them do that, and they will walk away with it. You will see them. How many MPs have murder cases going on? Some have even in some funny...
Some are actually sitting MPs.
Sitting MP, a person who misused his gun and shot somebody dead. And you see them even talking however they want. It's not about money. Let me tell you, the Kenyans making $1 million per month and who wouldn't mind joining politics are a zillion. But then, these people who run into these positions and are ready to use tens of millions, more than their 5 years accumulated salaries, is because of the impunity these positions earn them. They have the money. What they don't have is the impunity. Now they are going for it because we've made ours a bad system. We have IBC that has been clustered among the Chapter 15 institutions that are protected from political interference. The other one is EACC. But don't we see EACC being used as a tool by politicians in power to go for the cases of politicians who are out of power and who are not singing the song of those in power. And it is not about this regime. The Jubilee regime did so. There was the Kamata Kamata Friday. Yes. If you're not singing the song the government is singing and you have a case, we come for you. So our criminals are okay until opposition take power and then they come for our criminals. It is a cycle. Then you wonder, why do we have a constitution that has even made their budget tier 1, the CFS, Consolidated Fund Services, that this constitution, this institution, the constitutional commissions have their salary even protected, that their fund cannot be interfered with, yet they are there to serve the interest of politicians. Do you know why? Because in my opinion, these people are equally guilty. They have gotten to a level whereby as long as you cut me some slack, I cut you some slack. So you are EACC, you can be commissioned as EACC but be corrupt because you do what we tell you to do. Now, when we have a country that has such system, it is not a people problem. It is that we must ask ourselves as a people, are we ready to continue with it? Now, the IBC has set rules of when campaigns begin. We have guys campaigning today. What is one term? Ruto must go. That is campaigning. At least the president can lie to us that his is not campaigning, it is development to us, because at least he's going to oversee some projects. But now when we have these guys...
right, because at the end of the day, the president is the symbol of national unity. At the end of the day,
what I'm saying is, I'm saying that it is even more direct among the opposition, that they are in a campaign mode.
Yes,
the president
is in a campaign.
Yes.
That
now when we have a deputy president every weekend in some empowerment, nonsensical things called empowerment, you wonder when did empowerment become seclusive that we have to empower a group and leave the others.
I think we have the
but
point
the thing is,
that we are in the campaign mode.
The thing is, Ben, IBC has set regulations, right? Have we seen IBC bar people from participating in an electioneering period because they started early campaigns?
No,
we haven't. Now, when we have institutions even protected by the Constitution and yet they are not doing their work, then I think at Kenyans we have to ask ourselves, whose interest do these even constitutional commissions that are protected by law are serving? IPOA is another one, right? It is protected by the Constitution from political interference so that it can execute its mandate to be the watchman who watches the watchman. But then when it doesn't serve its purpose, then as Kenyans we must ask, are we ready to continue with the service, or we just need to go back to factory settings and restart?
All right. And because of the interest of time, Daktari, in your last statement,
I'll be very
why are
brief.
we not deliberate in observing the rule of law?
One is the society. We shouldn't be going away from that. Sometimes we like blaming the ones who do the work, but the society itself is the way they have been nurtured. Secondly, we could be having people who in every society don't follow the norms of the society's rules, and those are common, and that's why we have the rule of law, so that those people can be taken to court and they are judged for their mistakes. Thirdly, is my brother, the way my brother views it. He is judging people with no evidence on issues that are not there.
Those are his own sentiments.
Those are his own
really
sentiments. Because
them.
when you say the president could just lie to us but say that he is going for development, no, that's not right. The president actually has no any mandate.
I think we've corrected that, and I've said so that the head of state is the
yes, he's a symbol of unity,
symbol of national unity.
And wherever he goes, and of course, my friend Professor, he has told him he does something nonsensical. No, it isn't.
No.
Any developmental issues are very sensical.
Yes.
So I tend to think what we need to do now is that we need to approach things in a very sober mind, so that when we are making judgment, we don't offend or take the right of the other entity.
Right.
Even a criminal has a right.
Yeah.
Even a criminal before the law has a right. And therefore, the way we are going, whereby we judge people on the streets and sentence them, should be avoided. And the society should keep to the norms of the rule of law in this country.
All right, unfortunately, my director informs me that we really need to go, because in the next 2 minutes or so, Khalid Abdullahi Mohammed, my friend and colleague, is on the other side of the studio with Kurunzi, Mashinani and Tamrini. But I need to thank these two gentlemen indeed for making time and their insight. Kimani Mwangi just next to him, and Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan. And I will insist that the views expressed in this show do not necessarily reflect that of the corporation. Many thanks indeed for joining us. Let's do this some other time. I'll see you at 1 p.m. with Lunchtime News. My name is Bentro Njue, and Susan Thuku has been our sign language interpreter for this program. Many thanks, and have a blessed afternoon ahead.
And if I'm so useless, why do you still keep me around?
What else? You're Malaika's dad.
Ruth sleeps for that company, eats that company, does everything for that company.
Yeah, right.
Oh, really?
Is it that I'm too young for you, or she's more beautiful than me?
No, I didn't say that.
Na si ni kweli? Kwani yeye ni mamako? Kwani unapenda kudanganyana?
Kweli.
I really like you. And I know I have a baby with Isha, but that's in the past.
I think it's okay what Ruth is doing, questioning Jill. Because we barely know her. She's new. And I think we do have to take precautions.
Friday night again. Greetings in the name of the Most High, Jah Rastafari. My good name is Marley Moses, the positive warrior, alongside...
Yes, sir, DJ D-Rage, the baddest. Each and every Wednesday from 10 p.m. on KBC Channel 1 TV.
Tunakuletea the biggest reggae party in 254 in a yard extra. Extra niceness of reggae music.
Extra dose of entertainment.
When the thing is nice, we
have to do it twice.